Ready to start your own business? Have a small business already? Or maybe you have a great idea for a business but just don't know where to begin. Get a practical, nuts and bolts business education in just 15 minutes. Check out the $100 MBA Show, a Best of Apple podcast winner with over 2 million downloads per month. It's where business school dropout and successful independent entrepreneur Omar Zenhom shares real world lessons on starting, growing, and scaling your own business. On the $100 MBA Show, Omar shares what he's learned over years of entrepreneurship, including building his own SaaS company from the ground up with zero outside funding. From book reviews to special guests to listener Q&A and more, the $100 MBA Show offers lessons you can put to use right away. Whether you're an established entrepreneur, a side hustler, or just someone with a business idea. Subscribe to the $100 MBA Show on your favorite podcast app right now. That's $100 MBA Show on your podcast app or 100mba.net.
Hey everyone, Bobby Casey here. I'll give you a quick rundown about my experience and background with entrepreneurship. I have never, as an adult, had a professional job. I've always had my own companies. And even as a teenager, I had several different small businesses. For me, I was raised by an entrepreneur. My grandfather was also an entrepreneur, and going to work in a traditional kind of 9 to 5 job situation never really an option. Not that I was pressured in that way. It was just the example set for me. So I never really considered anything other than entrepreneurship as a professional path. Over the years, I have started, bought, and or sold more than a dozen companies. And it's just been a passion of mine, entrepreneurship. I've been in a lot of networking groups and I've been involved in a lot of different entrepreneurship communities. And I'm truly passionate about entrepreneurship. My current business, which I've been doing for about 20 years, I do tax and residency consulting for location independent entrepreneurs, and we do company formation and company structures for entrepreneurs. And what led me to that was my passion for entrepreneurship and helping entrepreneurs properly set up their business and minimize their taxation and optimize their business so that they could get to the business of doing what they do, providing value to their customers. Whenever starting businesses, I have bootstrapped almost all of my businesses. I did have a couple of businesses that had some outside funding from private investors, but for the most part, I have bootstrapped all of my business, starting with my very first, what I call real business back when I was, I think, either 20 or 21 years old. I ended up borrowing a little bit of money from my parents. I think it was like $1,000 or $2,000. And then I maxed out a couple of credit cards to go buy all the equipment I needed for the business. And that worked out pretty well. It took me about 3 years to build that company up to $1 million in revenue. And then I ran that for a few years before selling it. So that worked pretty well. I have started from that point. I actually had a bit of money. And so I bootstrapped my businesses through my own self-funding or through my ability to obtain personal credit lines or using credit cards, that sort of thing. I do have an example from one company where I had a big success and a big failure related to bootstrapping the company. One of my companies was completely bootstrapped from borrowing money from a couple of friends and family members and maxing out credit cards. And that company did really, really well, really quickly. I built it up into mid 7 figures and it did really, really well. However, what I found is when I hit some speed bumps and had some cash flow problems, having been completely bootstrapped without having any support of any bigger financing, it made for some very complicated and difficult times. And I nearly went out of business because some cash flow issues and almost couldn't make payroll. It came really, really close to barely making payroll a few times and ended up finally last minute getting some bank credit lines to make payroll. And then it took about a year, actually a little more than a year and a half to work that situation out. But that was just with one company. There are tons of really cool and unique options for bootstrapping your business. There are the easy ones, of course, like getting credit cards, and you can play the credit card game where you apply for credit cards, max it out, apply for another credit card with a zero entry period of, let's say, 12 months or 18 months, and roll that credit card debt over to save you on interest for and give you about a year, year and a half cushion. There are those types of things. Of course, there are the traditional methods, what you call FFF, friends, family, and fools, that'll loan you money in the early stage of business. And then there are also some pretty unique things, getting financing from your clients, depending on the product you offer. Sometimes your clients themselves, especially if you're selling to medium sized or larger companies, your clients themselves oftentimes would be willing to finance you either through giving you extended terms because they really highly value your product. Maybe they would be willing to actually loan you money because they see the value in your product and they understand you're a startup. And in some cases, you could even get them to invest for a small equity stake in your business in addition to just paying for your product. So sometimes going to your clients can be a best source of bootstrap financing. Some things to consider, especially if you are a new entrepreneur or you are an existing entrepreneur, but with a new venture, is don't overlook some basic things like proper company structure and tax optimization strategies from the beginning. Because oftentimes in my consulting practice, what I see is people obviously focused heavily on getting the business started, getting the first customer, hiring people. And as entrepreneurs, we're very growth oriented and we forget about some of the details like bookkeeping and accounting and legal structure and that sort of thing of our company. But down the road, if you have an incorrect legal structure, it can be a real hassle to change things over. For example, if you establish the wrong type of legal structure for your type of business that's not really optimized for you, you can end up having some pretty significant problems down the road if you need to change that legal structure. Like if you have existing contracts that are hard to change to your new legal structure, it can make some things complicated. So looking into hiring some professionals, either a tax strategist or a CPA or a lawyer from the very beginning, even though spending a few hundred or $1,000 or something like that might seem like a big chunk of money to outlay at the very beginning, it might be worthwhile to do it because it can save you multiples of that down the road. If you're looking for a place to do company formation, one of my companies does that, businessanywhere.io. We do company formation and bid agent service in all 50 states. We also do virtual mailbox and remote online notary.
I hope you enjoyed that episode and were able to take away a valuable nugget of information that you can implement right away in your own business. If you feel your story would be valuable for the listeners of this show, please visit frugal.show/guest.